Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope your day is going great. Mine's been awesome so far, and today we are going to be doing the second part of the best thing about every single Overwatch League team. If you didn't see the first part, I will link it down below. In the first video, I did the first 10 teams in alphabetical order, so today we will be doing the second half teams in alphabetical order. So if you're excited for this video and you want to know the best thing about every single Overwatch League team in my opinion, do me a favor, drop a like on the video and also subscribe to stay updated daily on Overwatch League videos. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. And we're going to be starting off with the LA Valiant. Now, LA Valiant, they have some good things about their roster overall. I really like Space and Fate as a duo. They're insane in the tank role. And they're definitely a big reason why LA Valiant was so successful during Stage 4 and why they looked like they were a contender for the championship. But this leads me to the biggest reason and the biggest thing why I think they will be good this season, and that's consistency that they kept in their roster. It's not just Fate and it's not just Space. These guys all play a key part in this team, and honestly, LA Valiant made the least changes out of anybody. They lost one player and they signed one player. That's it. Other than that, we're going to be basically seeing the same players that were competing for the championship last season in Stage 4. And honestly, as I said, this team looked like they were going to make a run for that championship. Unfortunately for them, they ran into a hot red London Spitfire, who went on to win the grand final. LA Valiant going into Stage 1 will definitely have a jump on all those teams who made a lot of changes over the offseason, and they'll be more experienced. Now moving on to the next team, we have the New York Excelsior. Honestly, I could name every player on this roster almost and say that they are the best thing about it. Jonak, the greatest Zenyatta in the entire league, MVP of the regular season and MVP of the World Cup. Of course he could be the best thing about this team. Sabiobi, Pine, Meko, Libero, they're all so good and they could all be the best part about this team. But I think the best thing that New York Excelsior could have done and did do is release Janus. Now I know some of you guys might be like, what are you talking about, Michael? Why would releasing a player be the best thing they did? It's because during Season 1, I feel like a lot of the inconsistencies about the New York Excelsior roster was because they had two different main tanks play two different styles, and I felt like it was just really unnecessary. If Mana was the main tank throughout Season 1 for New York Excelsior, I feel like they could have done even better. And I know that's crazy because they only lost a few games. And a big fault for the New York Excelsior during the playoffs was that they were doing too many things. They had Janus in, they had Manu in, they were doing weird random strategies, and it just didn't make sense. If they just stuck with what they were good at, I felt like they could have made it through Philadelphia Fusion and maybe on to the finals. And with this change, I kind of feel like they're following in the footsteps with what London Spitfire did. London Spitfire, they had two incredible main tanks going into the Overwatch League, arguably the two best in Fisher and Gesture. They decided, let's just run one, and that worked for them. And then halfway into the season, they decided, wait a second, it works in our main tank role, let's just do it with our whole roster and only run our good players and get something small going that can be consistent so we don't have to work on so much random stuff, and it helped them win the championship. I'm sure some of you guys will disagree, so I would love to know what you think about that down below, but let's move on now to the Paris Eternal, and hands down, the best thing about the Paris Eternal is their coaches. Yes, Sun was a great addition for these guys. Nico, he's a good player. They have some pieces here and there, but overall, their coaches are highly successful and highly experienced. Let me throw some stats out there. Paris Eternal has 4 coaches. 3 of them have coached a team and won Contenders Championships. 3 of them have coached Overwatch World Cup teams that made it to BlizzCon. And then the head coach, Damon, comes from the LA Valiant, who was very successful last season. So overall, this roster is so veteran when it comes to the coaching staff, and in my opinion, most of their wins will come because of the coaching staff. As I said earlier, don't get me wrong, they do have great players, but the overall experience that these coaches have is insane. They've coached Overwatch League teams. Yeah, I know Kai, he went through some stuff with the Devil's Fuel, and maybe we can exclude him, but the other 3 guys still won Contenders Championships, still coached Overwatch World Cup teams, still worked with other Overwatch League teams, played with so many players that did move on to the Overwatch League. They will be major factors in the success that Paris Eternal has in Season 2. Moving on now to the Philadelphia Fusion. This one's interesting. Philadelphia Fusion, they're one of the only teams that kind of lost players during the offseason. They're kind of in the same boat as the LA Valiant. They didn't really need to make many changes. They made it all the way to the grand finals. They have incredible players, Carpe, Poco, Neptuno. They're just filled with talent, EQO. So it's not like they really needed to make any upgrades upgrades or sign new players. I feel like the best thing they could have done was to downsize their roster. Get rid of those useless pieces that you didn't really need. Yeah, Shadowburn's a good player, but they didn't need him. Yeah, Hoppa, it was cool to have him and he was flexible, but there was no need to be having him on Tracer and Zenyatta randomly in the grand finals. So I feel like getting rid of those extra pieces that were unnecessary kind of is going to help this team find its identity and really bring them together as a team. Snillow's also a two-way player, so they kind of downsized in that regard as well. Moving on now to the San Francisco Shock, who have made a huge jump going into this season. So many people putting them in the top 3, top 4 of their power rankings. They're looking good. They made some great additions, and throughout those great additions, I feel like the best thing about San Francisco Shock is that they have Boston fever. The additions that they made from the Boston Uprising, adding Krusty as their head coach and Striker as one of their main DPSs, is really going to push these guys over the top. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some good players on Boston Uprising, but Striker was the absolute best, and Krusty was a big factor in why they went 10-0 during Stage 3. Don't let anybody tell you Krusty didn't coach Boston Uprising during Stage 3. He coached them that entire stage. It was him and Striker putting in all that work, and as soon as Krusty left, boom, Boston Uprising, the worst stage. They went from 10-0 in Stage 3 to losing their first 4 games in Stage 4. Now tell me that wasn't because of Krusty. So I think the combination of these two will really help this team be very successful going into Season 2. Moving on now, we have the Seoul Dynasty, and they made a ton of changes during the offseason, and I like all of them. Obviously, Fisher's great. They needed a stronger main tank. They're going to get that there. They also made an underrated addition, which is Changun, who was the former head coach of London Spitfire, helped them win a championship. I like that. They did struggle with coaches in the first season, but I really like the shot calling additions they made going into Season 2, and I think that's the best thing about them right now because they really struggled with it in Season 1, and that's adding Jexy and Fisher, who are both known to be extremely vocal and controlling of a team, and that's what these guys needed the most during Season 1. And now they got 2 players who can actually do it at an extremely high level, so that's perfect for them. Moving on now, we have the Shanghai Dragons, and let's be honest, everything they did was good. This team was an absolute catastrophe during Season 1, 0-40, unprecedented. So the best thing they did was doing a complete revamp. Nobody on their coaching staff is coming in from Season 1. They revamped the entire thing. Most of their roster is new. They kept a few pieces here and there, but overall they signed a bunch of great players from Kong to Panthera. I like the changes they made, and the best thing overall about them is that complete revamp. Now, moving on to the next team, we do have the Toronto Defiant, and I love this team. There's a reason I haven't put them on my power rankings yet. I really do feel like they're going to be the Boston Uprising of this season, but they actually are going to have a good coaching staff and management, which will make them even better. Bishop is a great head coach. He built the London Spitfire Season 1 roster and coached them to a Stage 1 championship. And there's rumors out there that Bishop got kicked from the London Spitfire because the players didn't like him. That is absolutely false. His family had an extreme emergency and he had to quit on the spot and go back to Korea. That's why he left. So all those rumors out there of people saying that Bishop was a terrible coach and he didn't get along with the players and the players voted to kick him out of the team was why he wasn't with London Spitfire anymore is not true, completely false. Jay came out on a podcast with Oversight and he said that's what happened in front of Monte Cristo, Thorne, and all those guys, and I believe it. There's no reason not to. I've also heard it from other people, so it seems pretty accurate to me. But I don't think Bishop's the best thing about this roster. He's amazing, but the best thing they did was sign the outcasts, the players who were doubted during Season 1, who were put in crappy situations, like Nako with the Boston Uprising. He was great, man. He was such a good player for Boston, but he was underrated and he was in a crappy situation. Then we look at Envy from the LaVallee. He was going through a whole bunch of stuff with them during the first couple stages when that roster was very unstable and they were doing that whole entire drama series on YouTube, taking agilities to in and out, and it wasn't a good environment for their players. As soon as they stopped that, Valiant, they just got like 3 times better, but unfortunately, Envy was kicked off the team for apparently being toxic before they stopped doing the drama-filled series YouTube stuff, so he never really got a chance to shine. But in my opinion, he did shine. He was one of the only consistent players on that LA Valiant roster during the first couple stages. And overall, he was one of the best off tanks in the league. If you guys remember watching my content at the beginning of Season 1, I just kept raving about Envy every single game they played because he was so damn consistent and he was always where he needed to be. So I love the additions they made, the underdogs, the players who were doubted, the outcasts. It's amazing. Now moving on to the Vancouver Titans, all I gotta say is chemistry, chemistry, chemistry. This is one of the most important things going into the Overwatch League. That and experience. And for a team who hasn't played in the Overwatch League, they have a ton of experience and chemistry together, and I believe that will put them above almost every single expansion team going into the Overwatch League, and also the Season 1 teams that completely revamped their rosters, like the Florida Mayhem, like the Shanghai Dragons. These guys are going to have a bunch of bumps because they're a brand new team going into the season, whereas the Titans, they're not really a brand new team. They're just under a new organization in the Overwatch League. So that's the best thing about them. And now moving on to the very last team, we have the Washington Justice, who I'm still shocked that people are putting them last on their power rankings over the Chengdu Hunters. It blows my mind. I get that they have a horrible starting schedule. They're going to get rolled over, but these guys have potential, and that's the best thing about them. From the coaching staff to almost every player on their roster, they have potential. Sure, we might not know who Sansam is or Hainu or how good Corey can be, but they have the potential, and I've heard rumors that these guys could be great. I don't think it's going to happen in stage 1, 2, or 3, but during stage 4, when they get an easier schedule, I believe Washington Justice potential will show, and we'll see a team emerge that does look pretty good. Anyways, that is the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it and you agree with what I said, be sure to leave a comment down below. If you disagree, that's fine as well. Let me know what you think the best things about all these teams are, and that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned. We got a power rankings video dropping either tonight or tomorrow morning. I'll see you guys later. Peace.